Welcome to Permission to Kick Ass, a podcast about leaving self-doubt in the dust, punching fear in the face, and taking bold action toward your biggest dreams. I'm Angie Coley, and let's get to it. Hey, and welcome back to Permission to Kick Ass. With me today, I'm so excited to introduce is Adam Rosen. Say hi.
Angie, how are you doing? So good to be here, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm doing great. I'm excited this weekend to move into Vegas. I'll be there for 6 weeks. That should be fun. And I was looking at your time zone. Are you in Hawaii?
I am. I'm currently in Hawaii. I've been here for a few months, and I've been bouncing from time zone to time zone over the past few months, and will be throughout this year. So it's always an interesting scheduling assignment anytime trying to find people in different time zones.
Oh, tell me about it. So you're a digital nomad too, it sounds like. I am currently in Arizona. And we just, as we're recording this in mid-March, we just had daylight saving time change this week. Arizona doesn't change. So this has been a very confusing week for meetings for me.
Hawaii doesn't either. We stay the same. Everyone else changes except for Arizona too. So it's just, I think it's just us two. I think it's Arizona and Hawaii are the only two states that do not change, I think.
I think so. Yeah. Cause I have Wednesday's the only day that I really have a morning meeting, but it's like 9:30 East Coast time. So today, like I got up and I normally get up at 7 and then got the messages like, are you coming? I was like, oh crap, I'm already on Pacific time. Right. Need to learn this. So here you go. Welcome to the joys of being a digital nomad. You never really know what time zone you're in.
It's true. And you never know what time zone anyone else is in too. So it always makes things interesting, keeps people on their toes, keeps me on my toes as well.
Oh yeah. So tell us a little bit about what you do, your business.
Yeah. So to describe what I do now, it probably makes sense to hear a little bit of the backstory. I'll keep it brief though.
Go for it.
Basically never had a real job. I never held a true 9-to-5. I did a 1-year MBA in college where I was running an entrepreneurship program. And then 3 weeks before I graduated, me and my two co-founders at the time decided to start what ended up being our first business. We did that for about 5 years. And it was basically a platform connecting college student organizations to companies. So our customers were like Bank of America, Amazon, AT&T.
Ooh.
We had about 100,000 student organizations from all across the country. So it was a jobs platform as well as a platform for companies to get data through surveying of the college students. So
That's
did that for
awesome.
5 years. Yeah, did that for 5 years. We were acquired back in 2019 by a college marketing firm. When I say we were acquired, though, people assume I moved out to Hawaii and retired with a Mai Tai in my hand all day, every day. One of those is true. Sometimes two of those is true. But the retired part, I definitely was not retired at 27. I say that to share that it was not a wild, successful exit by any stretch of the imagination. It was a journey filled with as many failures and as many bumps and as many falling flat on my face as I possibly could. So it was 5 years, did that, moved out to Hawaii, like I said, was advising a lot of startups and entrepreneurs, did some real estate work. And then about 9 months ago, I was talking to one of the startups I advise, and he said, hey, do you mind talking to our head of sales? We're struggling to get meetings on the calendar. I talked to her. I went back to their founder and said, hey, I can help you get more sales meetings through cold email outreach. He said, sure, do it for me. I called my business partner. We put something together for him. It worked well. We got another customer. And here we are 9 months later, planning to continue traveling the world, building this virtual business.
That's awesome. And I love that because it's just another example of what happens so often on the show, that just like by following the steps and saying yes to different things, a whole new business opportunity presents itself. Like I didn't hear anywhere in that story that you were like, so I saw that cold email was a trend and I decided to it was just, it happened over the course of working with somebody that you were already working with, correct?
Exactly. Yeah. And the biggest problem we had as a tech startup was, and I always encourage every entrepreneur every small business, every startup to get to product market fit. Because until you get to product market fit, you're just going to constantly be plugging in the holes of a leaky bucket. That was our biggest problem. That's why we weren't acquired for the amount that we all dreamed and hoped we would be. And like our investors hoped we would be as well, because we never could get to those retention numbers you need as a tech startup. But what we were great at was getting on sales meetings and closing a lot of sales meetings. And it was all done through cold email, which people always say, cold email doesn't work. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. And you know what? They're right. It does not work if you don't know what you're doing. We had to become good at it in order to survive. So it was something that came out of necessity. And yes, it was, I did not expect to have a lead generation cold email business. That was certainly not what I thought, but I love adding value. And I love that I finally feel like I have a business where there is product market fit. And now I could do what I enjoy doing most, which is bringing more customers and bringing more value.
Mm-hmm. And I have to say, like, there's a difference between people who talk a good game and people who execute a good game. So I feel compelled to interject at this point that the whole reason that Adam and I are speaking right now is because he and his team reached out to me via a cold email. And I've started getting a lot of pitches on the podcast, but it's clear that people aren't listening. They're just like flinging information at me. This would make a good guest for you. You have no idea what would make a good guest for me. And so, yeah, if I may say, without even seeing the rest of your work, I have an inkling that you might know what you talk about because you got my attention.
Well, thank you. I'm happy I did. And yeah, the biggest thing that I always look for, and with anything, because of the tech startup I had in the college student space, we would do, me and my business partner would do keynotes on Gen Z and the future of work. And we always share that Gen Zers, they have the attention span of a goldfish. So 8 seconds. Millennials, I'm a millennial. We ain't much better. We're about 12 seconds. And frankly, because of technology, the attention span for all generations is a steady, not even a steady, it's a steep decline. And the reason why I bring that up is because no matter what medium we are going after, using cold email as an example, but in no matter what the medium is, you got to show the other person that you respect their time, you respect them, you value them by getting right to the point. What's the problem you solve? What's the value? And what's the ask? But you got to get to the point. No bulky paragraphs, 12, 15 sentences, 4 paragraphs. No one's reading that. No one cares enough about you to read it. I hate to break it to you.
Oh, yeah. And I consult with a couple of different agencies and I get a lot of writers reaching out, cold pitching me all the time. And the biggest mistake that I see them doing in their cold outreach emails is just like attacking me, overly aggressive with their certifications. Here's all the courses I've taken. And I'm like, I don't give a damn how many courses you've taken. Show me that you actually get what my agency does and can actually jump in and help without me having to hold your hand for the next 6 months. Cool.
Yeah, exactly. Well, think about even, for you, when you meet somebody, right. And they're telling you about what they do for work, what their business is. If they talk to you for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, they do a big soliloquy. What are you probably going to do? You're going to be falling asleep. You're going to be thinking about what you want to eat. You're going to be thinking, how the hell do I get out of this conversation? Versus if they can pitch their business in 10 or 15 seconds and intrigue you, you're going to be like, oh, I want to learn more. I want to learn more. I want to learn more.
Yeah. And I'm totally going to agree with you that, just your example notwithstanding, I turned to cold email right when I left my job and started as a freelance writer. And incidentally, the very first cold email that I sent wound up landing me my very first client project. It took a couple months for that to come to fruition, but he was like, okay, so I'm really interested. The email caught my attention. We don't have a need right now, but reach out again on date. And I think we're moving in that direction. So I set a calendar reminder and I reached out again on that date and said, hey, just circling back. You said that you were interested in speaking this date. Let's see if we can make something happen. And we did. I love it.
Yeah, you know how to use it. When you know how to use it, it can be an X factor, a great tool in the toolkit. But like with anything, I don't care what type of marketing it is. If you don't know how to do Facebook ads, if you don't know how to do video, if you don't know how to do SEO, it's not like there's just a magic button you push and it's going to be successful. You either have to know what you're doing or you got to work with people that know what they're doing. But there's no magic button. If you don't know what you're doing, obviously the results aren't going to be there. Yeah,
I think that's really interesting too, because I know a lot of particularly copywriters. So I work with a lot of sales writers. You've listened to the show, so I presume that you know that.
Of course.
They get really caught up in this idea of I have to close, I have to close, I have to close. And I love what you said, because that really highlighted the difference in your approach, I think, which is I got to start a conversation. I got to get their attention. It's a totally different frame of mind.
Yeah, well, I'm forgetting which episode it was, but I remember you talking about just when you're selling, no matter what you're doing, you got to add value. You got to be focused on adding value to the other party you're talking to. It's not about just pitching. No one cares enough about me, you, anybody, because everyone's got their own lives, their own worries, their own fears, concerns, blah, blah, blah. But what can we do to add value? And if they don't want that value, that's okay. Mm-hmm. But we got to get to that as quickly as possible to respect their time and frankly, even to respect our own time. Like, let's just get to the point and stop pitching ourselves more about just, hey, how can I add value? And if I can't, that's okay. Let's both move on.
Oh, yeah. That was one of my mentors phrased it as he doesn't even like pitch. He's like, I make offers and I provide value, and I'm never even going to ask for a sale until I know that I have said enough to help somebody, whether or not they choose to work with me. And that is, that's basically the foundation of my philosophy. Just give, just give. So let's go back a little bit to the tech startup, because you told me about something interesting that almost made you give up. And do you want to share that story?
Yep. So there was a few times that were really tough, but I'd say the toughest time, and I'm assuming you're referring to the co-founder incident that we had.
Yeah.
That's always a juicy one for people. So I've heard people in the startup world or entrepreneur world that say, well, if you're a co-founder, you can't get fired from your own company. And, that happens way more often than people realize. And there was, a time with my startup, we originally had me and two others. There's three of us. And that by our peak, we had 5 co-founders, and it ended with me and one other. So you can imagine what probably happened. Our CTO left at one point. We had another one that we parted ways with, and then another founder that we had to part ways with. And there can be some ugly times. Even if the people are good and you enjoy working with the people, I hear horror stories all the time with founders. Mm-hmm. And for us, we had to make the tough decision to part ways with one of our business partners. And during that time, I was taking probably my first vacation in what felt like forever. Like I used to work like a dog. My life is very different now. I try to enjoy life and work at the same time, but I used to not be like that. I used to be office 6 a.m. till 8 p.m., Monday through Saturday. Sunday, I go in late. I go in at 9 a.m. and leave at about 6 or 7 p.m. But it was literally 7 days a week. So I finally took a vacation, and I went out to see my father, who also lives in Hawaii. And right when I land, I got an email from my business partner saying, hey, so-and-so is threatening to pursue legal action on us. Long story short, after consulting with our investors and everybody, they're like, yep, unfortunately, they're going to be right. And you're going to either have to give them their full equity, or you'll have to buy them out for a very significant amount of money. And at this point, it's like, what's the point? We've only vested half of our salary or half of our equity. They're going to be fully vested. We're going to be working to make them hopefully a lot of money. This isn't worth it. It's not worth it anymore. But me and my business partner, we did some digging. We're like, this just does not make sense. Yeah. So we called our attorney, and long story, slightly shorter, basically we were right. And that individual was wrong. And we were able to resolve the issue. We were able to part ways. I wish him the best. He's a great person. It just wasn't the right fit for us at the time. But it was the time where it was the one time in my business where I was like, screw this. It just isn't worth it anymore. But thankfully, we found a solution to it, and we were able to overcome it.
Mm-hmm. I heard a couple of great things there. I think one of them was just this. First of all, it's like a super whammy, right? I'm taking a vacation. I'm finally unplugging, and then shit just went to hell. What? What is even going on? And then hearing from all of your advisors and these people that you respect that like, well, basically you're screwed. So just suck it up. How did you find that, like the wherewithal, the strength to go seek out other options when you've got this like loud, resounding message in front of you saying, nope, you lose? Yeah.
Well, as you know, being an entrepreneur, part of the prerequisite to be like a real entrepreneur that can do it for a long time is you have to be solution oriented, and you have to be able to hear an answer, digest that answer, but try to find a solution when the problem seems, worth solving or needing to be solved. And I'm lucky, very, very lucky. I still am lucky. My business partner, we've been partners now for 7 years, 8 years. He's like a brother. We travel together. We're building these businesses together. And if I didn't have him, I don't know if I would have been able to persevere through it. So one, having him there is huge. 2, I'm a big believer in the George Washington quote, perseverance and spirit have done wonders in all ages. And then number 3, I love to study success and people that have done amazing things in this world. And the one thing that they all have in common is they've all fell flat on their face and picked themselves back up and were able to overcome things that were frankly a hell of a lot tougher than anything I've had to overcome. So those are probably the 3 things that were able to push me through, not just that situation, but everything that I had to go through when running that startup, and frankly, things that come up today.
Mm-hmm. I know. I thought it was funny that we were talking right before we started recording about how both you and I were frustrated with the sheer volume of entrepreneurs that, particularly in podcasts, seems to attract people that just want to share their overnight success story that took 10 fucking years to get there. Exactly. But the funny thing is, if you hang out with entrepreneurs, you know that we're all at the bar telling about all the times we fell flat on our faces, because those are the best stories and they teach you the most. Like,
it's everything. It's the learnings. But it also why I think it's so important, for podcasts like yours and just to have these groups for entrepreneurs where they can have these real conversations, because the truth is it's really tough to have these conversations. So that's why having groups and podcasts and like-minded people that have fell flat on their face, who had given up everything and took no money to try to build something in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, however long, building something and failing and having to overcome that, that's why it's so important towards podcasts like yours.
There was another thing that you said that I thought was really great. Like, I wish him well. I think he's a great guy. The implicit meaning there that I'm getting at for everybody listening being, sometimes you can love a person and not work with them. And it's okay. It doesn't mean that you're never going to talk again. It doesn't mean you're going to burn them to the ground in your wrath. Like, there are all kinds of reasons that relationships fall apart, including you outgrow each other, you're moving in different directions, something changed in somebody's life, and this just isn't compatible anymore. But I think, like, a lot of entrepreneurs I see, especially on the newer end of the spectrum or the growth stage, they'll take this shit so incredibly personally. Like, no, and there's hard feelings. And there's a lot of feelings. I don't want to discount the feelings that come along with something like that. And I imagine that you guys had some pretty strong ones, especially being on vacation.
Of course, yeah.
But long-term success means that you can't go around burning every bridge that you cross. Like, you might need to backtrack across one every once in a while.
Yeah. And the truth is that most relationships aren't meant to work out. Even if you look at romantic relationships, they're not supposed to work out. And sometimes we have animosity towards that other person. But the truth is, it's hopefully the next person you find is the right fit. Hopefully the next person that I find is the right fit, but we just weren't meant to work out together. And the same goes for that, that business partner I think he's sincerely an amazing person. I wish him nothing but the best. But we just weren't meant to be business partners anymore. But again, selfishly, I learned so much from that experience. And I'm so grateful that I had that, because anything I do in the future, I'll be better off of because I had to handle that adversity.
Oh, yeah. I love it. It's becoming like a theme in my life lately. Especially, I've been on other people's podcasts and they've been interviewing me about starting Permission to Kick Ass and living on the road. And I'm coming up against this recurring theme. I don't know if this ever happens to you, where like you get the same message multiple times in different places and you're like, oh, universe, you're trying to teach me something. But the theme that keeps recurring for me lately is the best thing was actually the worst thing. And like, the worst thing to happen to me, I know a lot of people are fascinated with how I became a digital nomad, which started with a relationship breakup that was unexpected. And, at the time, that was the worst thing to happen to me in a long time. Like, we were getting ready to buy a house together, and then everything just turned upside down when we broke up. But it also led to starting this podcast, meeting so many awesome people on the road, doing some really cool shit. Like, I don't know how many more years it would have taken for me to get my ass in a hot air balloon if I hadn't been on the road, like things that I've always wanted to do are now possible because he and I broke up. And in that way, like, the worst thing to happen to me was actually the best thing. It set me down on a path I couldn't have imagined without it.
I love that. Yeah. They say, what is it? The teacher will continue to appear until you learn the lesson. So until you're able to overcome that lesson, that teacher, the universe is still going to smack you in the face until they're like, all right, Angie, did you learn this or did you not learn this? If you didn't learn it, I'm sorry, but I'm going to come back to teach you again until you finally overcome that lesson. So I love that.
Oh, God. My brain immediately started singing the Chumbawamba song. I get back, get knocked down, but I get up again.
Wow, you're even a good singer there. Wow, that was very impressive.
I had a blues band way back in the day. I do miss it, especially since, in COVID times on the road, there isn't even a karaoke bar to indulge in. Like,
I'm so jealous of people like you that are actually good singers, because I would love to just go to a karaoke bar. So I have a podcast too, and my podcast host, he's I don't want to say a very famous musician, but he's very, pretty famous, over 500 million streams. That's how I met him, was through his music, and he's very talented, and he'll go to these, just random karaoke spots, and he'll just start singing, and he's obviously very talented. And so are you. Me, I'm the worst. If I start singing in karaoke, everyone in that place would either leave or throw bottles at me. Oh. So I'm envious that you have a good voice and can do that.
To me, karaoke is about how much fun you're having. Because I've heard some like really horrible singers that still owned that freaking stage. Like, this is American Idol and like, give me a chance, baby. But it's the ones I think that like, they aren't confident in their skills and then they kind of like sink down.
Sure.
Those are the ones that it's like, oh, baby, my heart breaks for you. No, like just have fun with it. Embrace it. Yeah. Right. Well, and I really liked something else that you said too about how all of this taught you a great lesson, to make an abrupt segue, like the business partner and you having to part ways and figure out your way around all that. You were saying that you learned a lot of legalese, you learned a lot of skills that you might otherwise not have known. And for me, that brought up an interesting thing I hear with coaching students all the time. Like, they don't feel like they can make a move until they know all the things. And like, those were things that you didn't even know that you needed to know.
Yeah, part of being an entrepreneur, again, because the path isn't painted, because you have to kind of figure it out. Like, sure, there's best practices, there's things that you can do to probably be most successful, but for the most part, we got to learn on the fly, and we're going to make mistakes. And if you want to be an entrepreneur, if you want to be a business owner, if you want to be a business leader, you just have to get comfortable with making mistakes. And frankly, the only way you do get comfortable making mistakes, unless that's just naturally in your DNA, which for me, it doesn't feel, even today when I make a mistake, it's like, oh, that gives me a little pit in my stomach. But you have to be okay with that pit in your stomach if you want to be an entrepreneur, because you just don't know all the answers. You're going to make mistakes. It's just inevitable. It's part of the ride.
Yeah. And without great risk, you don't get the great reward. Like you talked about everybody being like, oh, you had an exit, and they're picturing, you're instant millionaire. Do you want to talk a little bit more about what that looked like, how the reality differed from the fantasy?
Yeah. Well, I mean, my fantasy in the beginning was I wanted to run the company forever, IPO or bust, I would say, billionaire or bust. Like, I was such a pup, I was a 22, 23-year-old kid starting a company and just thinking I knew stuff that I didn't obviously know. Very fortunate to have great investors that allowed us to make the mistakes that we did. But yeah, I mean, that was always the dream. And the reality was, first of all, how we found the acquiring company. It was someone I'd spoken to in the past, but we did cold email outreach to a bunch of potential acquirers, and we had a bunch of conversations, and they ended up getting back a few months after we first sent the email, and they ended up being the great ones to do it. But for us, it was really, how do we get as much money back for our investors as possible? How do we make sure that the customers land in a good place? How do we make sure that the students land in a good place? And how do we make sure that the company can prosper and thrive past us? And thankfully, we're able to do, at least parts of all of those. And because of how we handled everything with our investors too, like, we still have great relationships with them. And because we were honest with them from the start, we never lied, we never deceived, we never tried to paint a picture that wasn't accurate. And I think because of that, they appreciated us. So if there is ever a time where we could work together again, I think they'll be much more open to it. I think they'd probably be more likely to work with us again because of what we went through. And hopefully next time we can make them, a lot more money.
Mm-hmm. I love that you said that, because it really just highlights the importance of relationships. And I know that that's become kind of a trope in entrepreneurship. It's about your network. It's about your relationships, but it's a trope because it's fucking true, guys. And the best part of that relationship too, is that those, like you said, it sounds like the worst thing, but it's actually the best things. The investors and the people that you partnered with got to see you in a bad moment. They got to see how you handle yourself when you're not putting on the polished, shiny exterior and the gloss and fooling everybody into thinking it. And I also thought it was important that you told the truth, that it wasn't just about the money. Because I think that can be hard, especially in this day and age where like the glamour of entrepreneurship, like we were talking about before the call, is, Mercedes. And like, I'm not driving a fucking Mercedes. I've got a fucking Kia Soul.
Hey, Kias are reliable. So that's a good thing.
Oh yeah. 18 months on the road. I haven't broken down once, just saying. Kia, do you want to sponsor me?
Are they a sponsor? Because if not, you should not be giving them these shout outs.
I know.
They're getting too much value for that.
I know. See, well, look at that. Given the value, developing the relationships, they're going to give me a new Kia. I can feel it.
I agree. I love it.
But like, even when I left my old job, when I got disenchanted with copywriting and I decided to start this podcast and this business, I didn't fuck this job, I'm out of here, burn all the bridges. I actually, okay, this is how corny I am. I wrote a note to everybody on the team and told them what I enjoyed most about working with them over the last several years, and gave them my email address. And so I went a little bit above and beyond just, here's my email address, keep in touch. And then I screenshotted the results because everybody wrote back and they gave me wonderful compliments. And then I wound up crying and being like, do I really want to leave and stuff like that? But yeah, it's true. It's about relationships. Like you just can't underestimate the importance of getting to know people. And in fact, I just had a call with somebody the other day who I'm getting to know. And by the end of the call, she goes, I don't know how it's going to happen. I don't know what is going to happen, but we need to work together. We're going to find a project to work on. And that has been the most pleasant surprise in my business journey so far. Just that people like, I like you. We're going to find something.
Exactly. It's good people. When you've been through that ringer, you can relate to it and you can understand it. And then when you do find people that have been through that and are trustworthy, you want to find ways to work together. You want to find ways to find mutual value.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. All right. So abrupt segue. Let's go back into the current business. So you said about 9 months that you've been working on this cold email. So tell me a little bit about what business is like and what you're excited about as this company grows.
Biggest thing that I'm excited about right now is how can we create a successful business from anywhere in the world with workers from all over the world.
Yes.
And that's the big focus right now because we didn't do a great job with my tech startup of building systems and hiring and managing employees and getting the most out of those employees. We did not do a good job of that. Now the focus is how do we continue to build systems in every single area of this business to make sure that this thing can run without us, to make sure that our employees can be successful, that it can grow, and that we can focus on what we do best to get this business to whatever level we want, whether that's selling the business, whether that's growing the business to a big number, whatever that means to us, or if that means, hey, let's keep this as, let's put it as a side hustle, let's focus on something else. I want to be able to have that decision, but the only way to do that is by number one, adding a lot of value, but two, having a great foundation. You have a great foundation by creating repeatable, scalable, smart systems.
Mm-hmm. I think it's brilliant that you said that because I know I coach a lot of folks that are freelancers or consultants and they're looking to grow and scale their business. And one of the things that most of them aren't even thinking about, and I know I didn't think about in my early days as a freelancer, was how do you replace yourself in this business? You have to. And not just because eventually you would like to retire and do things that are actually fun to you and not like work yourself into the ground of the business like you hired yourself to be an employee. I've been there and done that with my own business. But what if something happens to you? And you're not actually there to execute anymore. The business fails. The people that are depending on it is gone. And so you have to, at a certain point, obviously when you've leveled off your income and you've gotten some stability, then the long-term planning is a necessity. How do I systematize this? How do I bring in people? How do I build in redundancies that will keep this thing going? One great example is my client that I've been working with for a long term, Chris Orzechowski. He has an agency. And right after we started working together, the breakup happened. And I wrote to him right away and I was like, look, this is what happened. I don't know. I'm in a state. I can't guarantee that I'm going to be able to produce at any level. And I'm sorry to disappoint you. And he goes, no, actually, you're not disappointing me at all, which made a world of difference to me to have his support. He goes, you showed me that I have a flaw in my system. Mm-hmm. And I don't have this built in a way right now to support someone being out long-term. So now I need to think about how I've built my company and make sure that I've got that space built in so that I don't have to put pressure on people that are dealing with some hard shit. Wow.
That's just even a good way of for him, he took the personal responsibility of not being like, Angie, how are you doing this to me? I don't care what's going on. You got to produce versus man, I got to create better systems in place so that when this inevitably happens in the future again, I'm ready to handle it. That's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. That's that relationship first approach in action, I think. Not just, well, look, your life just got turned upside down, but what about me? It's, right. Oh shit, your life got turned upside down. And I know that this is inconvenient for me, but this too shall pass. And because I had his support, I can't even imagine how the difference in processing it would have made if he had come down on the other side of that coin. But we've worked together for so long in different iterations that it was just oh man, I'm so sorry that that's happening to you. All right, let me know what you need, do what you can, just keep in touch and we'll figure something out. And then sure enough, just going to work with him and the team was something to look forward to every day and helped get me through the worst of it. So.
Well, it's also, you were honest,
mm-hmm.
you could have handled it one of two ways. One is the way you handled it, but two, you also very easily could have been like, I'm going to keep working. I'm going to keep getting paid. And I'm just going to produce at 30% of what I can normally produce, and still collected your paycheck. And I'm sure part of what he really respected of you is that you said, hey, here's where I'm at. I'm not going to be able to produce right now. Let's figure out a solution for it.
Mm-hmm. I've definitely done that in the past where I tried to hide it and just kind of bury myself in the work. But I had it's my go-to now. Something crappy just happens. I'm going to let you know that this is where I'm at. Here's how I'm working on things. And I'll just keep you updated. Like you and I talked about how I just finished recording the first podcast, like re-recording an episode that I lost because my computer crashed. Yep. And when my computer crashed, there's a fun symmetry to the story. I'll get to it in a very circuitous manner. But my computer crashed, and the first thing that I did was get on my phone and tell my clients, my computer crashed. I'm going to do my best, but there's a snowstorm in Santa Fe. I don't know when I'm going to be back up and running, but I'm here. Ping me if you need me, and I'll figure out a way to get it done. And then I took the afternoon off, ultimately figured out the computer thing, and it was fine. The cool thing was, so I'm in the process of hiring a VA right now, a new VA. One of the questions that I built in for my VA was like, you're on a deadline and your computer crashes. What do you do first? And to me, there was only one right answer. Contact me and tell me that your computer crashed. And I got some interesting answers from people that were like, oh, I'd borrow a computer from my friend down the street and I would do this and I would do that. And I was like, call me, tell me what's up so that I can make preparations. I can move deadlines and things like that. But yeah, that's the interesting symmetry.
I love that. No, it is true. And it just, again, is being radically transparent. It's being honest and it's just being forthright. When you do that, we're forgiving humans are forgiving people for the most part. Like especially for something light like that, we would rather, at least for me, and I'm sure you agree, and I'm sure most people, if not everybody listening to this would agree. I would rather tell me what's going on I'd rather you tell me what's going on and be honest versus just try to get away with it on the side without telling me. If you're honest with me, I can forgive. If you try to go a back route with me, then it's going to be a lot worse.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. And I mean, this happened too, because I'm in the process of rebuilding one of my websites. And I got the copy to my web guy, I want to say like a week or two ago, and I didn't hear from him. So I just circled back today. And again, it's not like taking offense or assuming he's dropping the ball or trying to screw me over. It's the relationship first. So I just checking in to make sure that you got this. Do you need anything else from me? How's it going? Just keep me updated. I heard back from him within 2 minutes. And, he told me he's going through a personal situation and didn't realize that, like, in his mind, he had replied to me, but didn't realize that he hadn't replied to me. And so, like, I can only imagine the damage I would have done if I had come in scorched earth, like, bro, what the fuck? Where's my website? Where'd you go?
Right.
Yeah.
Most things are just a simple misunderstanding where when we go into attack mode, though, then the guard comes up. Mm-hmm. And then we never get to the real solution, where sometimes it just takes, hey, just sending a quick follow-up here, making sure that you receive this. Or, hey, is everything okay? But instead of being like, attack, where is this? Where is this? Where is this? Because we don't know what's on the other side of it too. We don't know what they're going through. We don't know what's happening with them. And usually it's an honest mistake. Now, if it becomes a repetitive thing where it constantly is happening, then of course you need to address that. But yeah, it's like one of just the basic fundamental rules. Just treat people how you'd want to be treated. Just be nice. And typically you're going to get the results that you want. Be honest. Typically you're going to get the results that you want. If you don't, that's okay. Then you have to make the decision after that happens. But yeah, I would always rather lead with kindness, lead with empathy, lead with openness versus leading with attacking.
Yeah. I think that's really brilliant, just because it doesn't take any extra effort to be kind. Like, why do we convince ourselves that, like, being mean or being demanding or being entitled is so much easier than reaching out and being like, hey, are you okay? This is out of the norm for you. It's not like you to go radio silent. I'm concerned. Are you okay? Versus like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Why did you go away? Why did you disappear? You're letting me down. I think they know that they're letting you down. And there's almost a magic that happens when you acknowledge that and just get it out of the way. Like, okay, something happens. I'm aware of it. Can we just reconnect and figure out how to get this going forward again?
Exactly. It's simple, but I think it could be very, very, very important for us all. It's a daily reminder for myself too, because sometimes I don't do a great job of that either.
It's always a practice. And like, we're talking about this at a high level, but each of us is easily talking about 5-10 years of hard experience and making mistakes and learning all of these lessons by, I joke with some of my students, hey, is bashing your head against that wall opening any doors for you? You might try actually moving down the wall a little bit and opening the actual door instead of trying to create one with your face.
Exactly.
Oh man, this has been an amazing conversation. Tell us a little bit more about your business and where to learn about you.
Yeah. So if you want to learn more, basically what we do is we book sales appointments primarily for startups. So we send cold emails and we put the meetings on their calendar so they could do what they do best, which is hopefully closing new business. So if you want to learn more, the company is Email Outreach Company. The website is eocworks.com. My email is adam@eocworks.com. And if you want to connect with me on Instagram, that's where I'm most active. It's at Adam I Rosen. So ADAMIROSEN.
Awesome. I'm going to make sure that they have clickable links in all of the show notes. And I think we're going to have to do a follow-up, like in a couple months, see where everybody's at with the business and just keep pontificating on all this. It's been fantastic.
I love it. Let's do it. Now, Angie, I appreciate you having me on. I love the work that you're doing. So keep up the great work. And yeah, thanks for having me on.
So that is it. Another awesome episode of Permission to Kick Ass on the books. If you want to know more about the show, if you want to know more about me, Angie Coley, and the mission I'm on to help entrepreneurs punch fear in the face and do big, bold things, then head on over to permissiontokickass.com. That is all one word together, permissiontokickass.com. Make sure to sign up for my email list so that you know whenever there's a hot, fresh, and ready podcast episode out for you. And also on Mondays, I like to send out a little newsletter called Kick Monday's Ass. I'm sure you're totally surprised by that. So thank you for being here with me today. I'm Angie Coley. Make sure that you share this with a friend that needs to hear this message today. Like it, share it, comment wherever you're listening to this today, and let's go kick some ass.